Review code provided by Brace Yourself Games. I'm Jared.
I'm Marcus.
Level with us. Hello and welcome to the show where we have a cozy game discussion every week. This week we are talking about the indie title Cobalt Core. And this is a deck building game, which we've covered deck builders on the show before, but this one kind of has its own unique twist. So Marcus, do you want to try and elevator pitch it to our listeners?
For sure. I got to say, this kind of game is my jam. So Cobalt Core, you are controlling a ship and a crew on that ship of three different crewmates. Like most deck builders, you're playing cards and using energy to play those cards, and then it's a roguelike, so you get more cards over time and run into different random encounters. What is unique about this is, first, the fact that you are strafing left and right in your ship, and that's kind of a unique aspect of it because you'll see incoming attacks, so you can either put up shield or dodge, or a combination of the two. The other thing that is unique about this is you have a list of characters you can choose for your three crew members, and each of the crew members come with their own deck synergies, basically. They determine the cards that show up in your runs. So, for example, you might have the guy who's good with shields, the person that is good with strafing, and then a person who's good with attacks. And then a combination of those three things will pop up. So there are a lot of synergies within those groups, but also synergies that connect multiple people's special abilities or features. Yeah, what did I miss?
No, that's it. This is a game in space. This is a spaceship game.
Oh, did I say that?
You said ship. I just want to clear, this is a ship in space. And yeah, the developers call it single-axis strategy. So like Marcus said, you have your ship that is strafing left and right, but the enemy ship is also strafing left and right, which I don't know. I don't know if that sounds engaging, but it so is. Like, it's just electrifying to evade out of the way of an incoming really powerful blast and then hit them 2 times with your cannon, and then, I don't know, spawn an asteroid in between you to block something. You know, like, there's so much possibilities with that simple premise. I just think it works. I think this game is just a perfect implementation of the idea of adding deck building with a little bit of, controlling a starship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interestingly enough, it actually sort of reminded me of the game Into the Breach, which is not a deck builder, but it very much is a strategy game where your placement matters and the enemy's direction that they're moving matters. So it makes sense to me that they would call this a strategy game.
That is an apt comparison, for sure. And the people who made Into the Breach also made FTL, and I feel like that game kind of influenced this game a little bit, right? As far as, crew members and aiming your shots and stuff. Yeah, I think this game is fantastic. You mentioned synergies. Have you found a specific synergy that you particularly found really enjoyable? Like, what was your best run so far playing this game?
Good question. Okay, so there are different ships. This is going to, for people who haven't played it, I don't know if this is actually going to be engaging for me to try to explain, but here I am going to try to explain it. There's a ship where instead of attacking, you send out drones that attack for you whenever you play an attack card. So it means over the course of a couple of rounds, you can put out multiple drones, which means that they're shooting off multiple attacks every time you trigger an attack. So I found that if I found a way to get out a lot of those drones quickly and then a single, like, really big attack, then it would hit for a lot of damage pretty quickly. So I liked damage-heavy runs, but it also has been a lot of fun to experiment with the more esoteric, I don't know. Some of the mechanics in the game take a minute to kind of get a hang of. Like, I ended up shooting myself in the foot a couple of times with certain abilities and mechanics.
Oh, totally. And like, it's definitely a game where you can blow through an enemy encounter super quick, but also you could just be careless and accidentally strafe the wrong direction, or not realize when you line up your shot that the card you played also will move you into the enemy line of fire, right? So me too, I have suffered a few times, paid the consequences for being just not paying enough attention. So you really have to take your time sometimes. The drone mechanic is cool. I really like that instead of 2 rows, you're now managing 3 rows, right? It's like you don't want to shoot your own drones by accident.
Right.
And also sometimes enemies shoot missiles and you want to try and destroy those or evade them or flip them around if you have the right artifact for it.
Right.
Speaking of which, like all good deck builders, in my opinion, this game has lots of artifacts which give you like passive buffs. And that's really exciting, especially because you get ones that are specific to your character, which to me was super nice because in other deck builders, sometimes I would get an artifact and it just was not helpful. It did not help my strategy at all. But fairly frequently in a run, I would usually in this game get an artifact that pertained to the abilities of a character I had. And sometimes it didn't line up with my strategy, but most of the time it did because it at least affected some of the cards I had, right?
Right.
Which is really nice.
We've talked about how unique it is. I think it's also familiar in a lot of ways to people who have played deck builders before.
For sure.
And it made me think about how artifacts are kind of, in most of the games that I've seen them appear in, they're suggestions for types of builds, basically. So if you have one that's like, oh, hey, now you can, overheat at 5 instead of 3, then you're like, maybe I can look for cards where it's good to have a high overheating number. So I really do like the dynamic of like, they're random cards, but then these artifacts also are kind of a step above the cards in encouraging certain play styles.
For sure. And I think people will like the amount of permutations there, especially because of the mix and match thing, right? Where you have several different characters that have different synergies. Like I tried one most recently with none of the 3 starting characters you get.
Right.
And that was actually kind of tricky because the 3 main ones had a lot of evade and shield, which I feel like is pretty necessary for most runs that I've done. So to take those away, not that those mechanics don't show up, but it's a lot harder. So add in the fact that there are, I think, 5 ships. As far as I'm aware, there's only 5. But mix and match that with all the different deck combinations, and you have tons and tons of replay value. I really like that this game gives you a reason to keep doing runs. You unlock a little story thing whenever you complete one.
Yeah.
So that gives you, there's now a completion goal. It's not just one of those roguelikes where it's like, okay, now beat it, but on a harder difficulty. It's, there's a reason to try out different characters and ships, and I think that's great.
Right. Yeah, because specifically at the end of a run, you unlock memory of one of the characters on your ship, so that encourages you to play with every character at least 3 times, which is quite a few times, all said. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of permutations. It's really interesting to me that it seems like some of them are just like bad ideas, like don't work well. Kind of what you were saying about trying out not using any of the main 3. It feels like there's certain combinations where you're kind of doomed. So I'm curious. I'll probably end up playing more of this game. I'm curious to see if that's just another way of making it difficult, or there are these like stealthy synergies that you don't realize in these like weirder combinations, because you can do one person who attacks and one person who lets you draw cards, and that's it. Like in terms of mechanics, it's really interesting to try to figure out how can you make those combinations viable.
I don't think they outright said, okay, this combination will be impossible to win. But you're right. I think
Sure.
it will. I think there will be a range of difficulties based on what decisions you make. So yeah, I mean, this is a fresh spin on deck building. It's a fresh spin on tactics. It's just a fresh spin of a game. So I've really enjoyed Cobalt Core. Let's dig into some of the things we especially liked with star pieces. This is the part of the show where we talk about a cool little detail that we liked, or something interesting we found about the game. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, so my star piece is the little dialogue things that your crew will say in the middle of battle. So on the left side of the screen, you see 3 little pictures of your 3 crew members, which is a smart kind of reminder of, the in-story of this is a combination of 3 people's skills all put together. But they have a couple of dialogues that will pop up for very specific things. Like if you evade all the way to the side, one of your people might say, "I've been saying this whole time, we should just run away. This is great." Or if you put out a drone, they'll say, "I'm going to name this one Isaac Jr." And then it dies, and he's like, "Farewell, Isaac Jr." You know, like just little things like that. One of them says, "Hey, is it getting hot in here?" And another one is like, "If you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen." Or y'all are a bunch of babies.
Try using a fan.
Yeah.
Maybe I like it hot in here.
Exactly. So a really smart way to not just like have kind of bits of levity, but also just to keep the theme and the story in mind, to have these moments in the middle of battles, I think is a really clever way to use their setup.
Absolutely. And you told me the other day, you were commenting on that to me, how you liked those little comments. Believe it or not, for my entire first run of the game, I did not even notice that they said things when you attacked. I think I was just really focused in on the ship, and I didn't look at the left side of my screen at all for some reason. But I started paying attention, and yes, it is so delightful. Something that's in the description of the Steam store page for the game. They list the bullet points of like what this game is all about. One of them is get to know your crew. Each character comes with a unique playstyle and personal story. Bring 3 along, mix and match the decks, and see how these little goobers get along with each other. And I just thought that was the perfect description. Just like, yeah, that is kind of what this is. Just see how these little goobers butt heads and get along, and it's very cute. My star piece is basically related to yours. I was not expecting the humor to get me in this game, but it absolutely does. There was one run specifically where I went to you can do a combat encounter, you can do like a pit stop to repair your ship or upgrade cards, or you can enter an area where you don't know what will happen. And I entered one of those, and one of the characters is like, "Hey, it's our friend Dracula." And there's like a Dracula character. He's like, "Hey guys, it's good to see you again. Here, let me give you a card for your deck." And I was like, "What?" Yeah, they're like, "Oh yeah, it's just Dracula." You know, I don't know why, but that just tickled me so much.
There's some wizards in space as well. It doesn't take its spaciness too seriously, I would say, for the most part.
The dialogue is charmingly written.
Yeah,
I quite like it, and it definitely helps, because I think you could very easily write a story. These characters are trapped in a time loop, and you could easily make it kind of depressing and dark. But I like that it's lighthearted. I like that it's bright and cheerful. So kudos.
Yeah, which, I don't think we've even mentioned up to this point that the characters are anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah, they're like little dinosaurs and little animal character guys.
Awesome. And you have an AI on board that is cat.exe.
Right.
But yeah, very cute. Do you have a quick jab?
Yeah, we can get into quick jabs now.
And jab.
This is where we talk about something we didn't like so much about the game, but not for very long. Why don't you go first again?
I think a lot of both my star pieces and quick jabs have been this like for a while now. But my quick jab is also the dialogue.
How so?
Specifically an aspect of it, which is Hades is a high bar to clear, I know, but I loved that in that game it was a roguelite that just felt like it had a bottomless pit of dialogue for over time. And that one's voice acted too, so it was even more impressive. I'm sure I'm comparing apples to oranges here, but even just in like a couple runs, I was seeing repeat dialogue, like when they see the shopkeep, which personally for me, I would always beeline to the path that would end me at the shop, because that's where you can remove cards and upgrade cards. So I actually saw a lot of repeat dialogue, which I think could have been opportunities to have even more of that fun characterization we were just talking about. So again, just a little quick jab, but I felt like, oh man, if there was just even a little bit more of that personality injected, a little bit more writing.
It is a time loop, Marcus. They
That's
don't realize that they're repeating themselves. So it was actually a compliment. What you're saying is they did a good job being narratively consistent.
That's so true. Well, I mean, that being said, it's a itty bitty quick jab because they actually still have new dialogue in each loop. Like at the start of a loop, a character will talk to another character and say, hey, I've been thinking about what you said a while ago. So they actually do remember at least certain things.
Oh, never mind. It is a quick jab. You're right.
I guess I'm just saying, like, I wish that was consistently across the board. There was a lot of that diversity of dialogue.
Mine is also just the quickest of jabs. When you are playing, each card that you highlight shows a description for it, and that's really helpful because sometimes you forget what the symbols mean. And you can turn that off. You can hit X and it'll go away. But it's always on by default, so even if I've flipped off the descriptions, when I enter a new battle, they're on again. And I don't know, maybe that was the right choice, but it bugged me a tiny bit that it wouldn't, save my settings. So again, super quick, but
yeah. Well, I agree with that, especially since once you're getting into the meat of this game, you hover over a card, and the explanation of what the card means is about 3 times larger than the card itself. So it covers up so much of your screen, so it feels like you have to, all right, turn off every round.
Right, and I need that for like new cards I'm adding to the deck. But once it's in your deck, usually you're very familiar with what it does, right? And this is also semi-related, but we talked about this with Griftlands a while back, but it just kind of feels like this game might be better with a mouse. We played it on Switch, but sometimes it's hard to tab up to try and highlight one of the enemy intents, right? It's a little wonky with the stick sometimes, but it's not a huge deal. I'm kind of used to it. So
sure.
Well, that brings us to our final segment. Who's the fake fan? Fake fan. This is the part of the show where Marcus and I try and stump each other with nerdy trivia questions. So I'll go first this time. If you remember, in the 9th episode of Level With Us, we talked about 3 deck building games. Do you remember this?
Yes.
This was a couple years ago. And in this episode, we actually had a new segment that we added to our podcast that we had never done before, nor have we ever used it since. Do you have any guesses as to what that segment was?
Let's see. We've done... Was it What's Happening? Marcus, What's Happening?
No. We've done that several times.
Okay, then it also can't...
But this is one that only appeared in that episode.
Just the episode. It's not Get Rex, is it?
I think you need some options here. So let me give you a multiple choice.
Oh, this is the question. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if you had a guess before we jump in. But here they are. This is, again, a segment that we only did that one episode. Baby Mode, Oops, All Synergies, Get Deck Rex, and Marcus's Grammar Corner.
Get Deck Rex sounds like it'd be right, but I feel like I've occasionally been pedantic, so I feel like it was probably a post-credits Marcus's Grammar Corner. Is that what it was?
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Yay!
You were educating me and the listeners on the difference between less and fewer. It went pretty deep. It lasted about 5 minutes.
That can't be right. For reals?
Yes, it was in the post credits segment. Yeah.
Wow.
It was post credits. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not even sure if I'm the source of accurate information on something like that. So take it with a grain of salt. Take it with fewer grains of salt.
Hey.
But take it with less salt, because salt itself is not quantifiable, but grains of salt is.
Yes, you're very smart. All right, what's your question?
Well, mine actually deals with Cobalt Core. We've been talking about these little goobers. Do you think you could name 4 of them?
Oh, I'll try. One is Perry.
Uh-huh.
One is Riggs.
Wait. Do you know what their job on the crew is?
I don't think I do. I can try. Perry, I assume, is like a pilot or something, because their cards are about instant movement.
Weapons officer,
actually. Yeah, and shooting. Yeah, that sounds right. Okay, I think his name is Dizzy. Mm-hmm. Isn't Dizzy one of them? And yes. That's shield. That's getting lots of shield is the main thing, but I think maybe the drones is also something. Maybe not. No, that's someone else. No, that's someone else. Yeah, so it was mostly
Dizzy
shield and something else.
The
science officer. Yeah. Yep, I got that. There's Drake, and they're like the outlaw that likes to burn things, overheating and being really aggressive.
Yeah, she's a hired mercenary.
Hired mercenary. That sounds right. I thought they were like a stowaway or something because everyone kept talking about like Drake being not supposed to be there or something like that. But that makes sense. Shoot, and I need one more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drake, Perry. Oh, Riggs.
Yep.
And Riggs is maneuvering, I think. So I'm gonna say like pilot or something like that.
I think so. I actually don't remember that one, but that sounds right.
Okay. Well, I got the names, so.
Heck yeah. Good job. Other names include, but are not limited to, Isaac, who is the drone guy, who's kind of like a hacker.
Oh, with spoilers, I haven't met him yet.
Oh, whoops. How about have you met?
No, I've not met the two secret characters yet. No more spoilers. I'm moving on. Well, once again, neither of us is a fake fan. Very pleased about that.
Yes.
I highly recommend Cobalt Core if you are into deck builders, or if you really like cute little sci-fi indie games. I think this could be up your alley. So we will leave a link in the description to where you can purchase it. And yeah, thanks for joining me, as always, Marcus.
Of course, of course.
We're going to try and do one more episode this year where we talk about our favorite games of the year. I don't know if it will release in December or if it will release in January because I am having a baby in just a T-minus like 2 weeks from when this episode releases. So yeah, so I'm not sure how things are going to be, but hopefully we'll be able to get that out soon. So just keep an eye on your feed and hopefully we'll bang that out soon. So thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, I'm Jared.
I'm Marcus.
And we'll level with you then.